I'm Jamie McDonald from the Department of Education. My responsibilities include the Office Opportunities Program, my blueprint, personal development credits, Nova Scotia Work School liaison officers, and a bunch of other things. And today we're going to be talking about portfolios in Co-op and O2. I've seen a lot of people in one of the sessions is in earlier, so I'm sure everyone is already aware to please keep your mics off and cameras, make things run a little smoother. And if you have any questions, again, please populate them in the chat there, and Mr. Don Hill will be able to answer your questions where he can, or let me know that if there's a question there as well. So I mentioned the Jamboard already and how to sign up for my blueprint. Again, I put some things in this presentation because they'll be posted for you guys to be able to access later. So they're posted there. If you want to access them later, they'll be linked in the presentation, which I'll upload today. So I noticed that people mentioned kind of the physical portfolios, and I know that that's something that I had used up to my last year in the classroom, so about 3 years ago. And we're going to talk a bit more about the e-portfolio here today, but also the general idea behind portfolios. So why portfolios? The whole idea is not just to create a file folder. If that's what we wanted to do, a collection of documents, that's not really a valid assessment of what the students have necessarily done. That's collecting things that you've already assessed there. We want them to document the process of stuff as well, not just the final product. The power of the portfolio is monitoring that process of growth, looking at the skills that they're developing, making connections between items. If it's done well, it's structured well, you're going to increase their metacognition, so they start thinking about their own learning and think about their role in that process. So instead of being kind of passive in it and doing things just to get the mark for it, they're actually starting to think about the connections and think about their own learning and how they can look for opportunities for growth and development. Again, that greater ownership, start thinking about how that the experiences that they've had, whether it's in the workplace and co-op, whether it is obtaining a certificate, whether it's field trips, anything like that, how that has changed their knowledge, what skills they've developed, how this can help connect to their career and education plan, and also things like that. Teachers, the research indicates teachers engaged in it, and actually had mock portfolios or had model portfolios of their own, had a better understanding of how to structure and do this with their students, and how better to assess these in the classroom. And that last bullet there, I think, is really valuable. Understanding their knowledge, skills, and abilities, which is what we're looking to do in these courses, right? We want to help prepare them to make those transitions to ensure that they're on the right track, they have a plan developed, and they're able to navigate that kind of plan, and understanding the knowledge, the skills, the certifications that they would require, the education that they require, is really important. And being able to see how those pieces connect rather than they're singular events that have occurred to kind of, stepping stones, but they're all interconnected and helping them move towards that rather than just doing an assignment to do an assignment. I know sometimes that happens for students in classes where they feel like they're doing it just to do it because they need to get a mark for it. We want to ensure if portfolios are done well, that they're understanding the connection of pieces. So how? Should be a regular part of practice. Portfolios done well aren't just done at an end piece where they just compile stuff at the end. It's not just throwing things in a file folder for later. And reflection has to take place. So they have to think about why they've chosen this, what the impact of that event was, why they've selected to put this image, this reflection in there, this documentation of what they've done, why they've chosen to talk about this event and how it impacted them, how this demonstrates the skills that they're developing. So ways you can do it, and again, we're looking at both O2 and Co-op. So in Co-op, throughout the process of their placement, during, and towards the end, they should be continuously documenting things and developing things for it. Throughout the 3 years of the O2 program, our students should be continually editing, adjusting, setting goals, documenting an action plan for those, looking at ways to connect how they have done that. And it should be a cross-curricular piece throughout their experience. They leave with a well-developed portfolio. The nice thing about my blueprint, which we'll talk a bit more about today, versus the binder version, is they're able to make multiple portfolios without having to recreate everything from scratch and having 4 or 5 binders, right? Pulling stuff out and doing things. I know personally when I made the change from the paper binder to the digital portfolio, I had no more, I lost it, I left it, where's the certificate? I can't find it. How do I get access to it again? I wasn't going back and forth to the printer for kids 100 times, and oops, something went wrong with the printer and now everything's smudged. So it was a lot less waste. I wasn't going out buying plastic sheet protectors for the class and ordering those in and binders every year. And working on that piece, removing that made things a lot easier. I also wasn't dragging them around to mark them at the end of the semester. I wasn't chasing kids down to give them back. And certainly the excuses for, I swear I'm working on it, it's at home, don't exist when you can monitor when they've been on as well through my blueprint. One other good piece for O2 and a variety of course, is if they're working on something collectively, which as we talk about some of the outcomes that it links well with. Students have their own portfolio in there. There's no group one, so they have to document their involvement in the process. So it gives you a way to assess that, and it's not just giving a group project, which we're not doing as part of assessment anyway, giving a final mark or relying on the self and group assessments that kids just end up checking off a lot of the time. They're going to have to document what they did, reflect on it, do that, and they're owning their entire experience through there. And you're going to be able to see those that aren't involved and are leaning on everyone else and running the coaches aren't going to have anything in their own portfolio. They're not going to be able to just, take off someone else's. They can't see each other's portfolios, so they don't know what is in there. So they can't just create, a copy of someone else's and pass that in as themselves with some adjustments. They have to develop their own. And in that process of a service learning project that they're working on, it works really well for them to document everything that's going on. And the nice thing for a portfolio and a process like that is we encourage our students, if they're documenting the process rather than just the final product, is they can talk about their failures and barriers and how they navigated those, which are really good learning experiences, which are where good skills are developed, because they haven't just, said this was the end result and we didn't accomplish what we wanted, so we didn't do great. That's unfortunate. They can talk about the person along the way. You can provide feedback, and it's way more of an engaged thing rather than they are scraping things together at the end, trying to make it seem like they've done more than they have. So in co-op, portfolios should be the capstone for the course. That should be where everything kind of comes together. As I said, there should be reflections on everything that they're putting in there. They should be connecting to their initial plan and goals. Their learning plan should be in there. All these things should be coming together and being developed. It shouldn't just be remarking things that they've already passed in because they made a couple edits on it. We want to see that depth with it if it's going to be meaningful as a piece of assessment. So documents here, and we'll take a little look. My blueprint has some exemplar portfolios on there. I have some I'm going to show you as well. But they actually have an exemplar page where you can see if you end up teaching some other courses, what they may look like. They're not bad. It gives you an idea about what they can look like. Just let's take a real quick look here. So as you can see, they've loaded a bunch of stuff up. They're able to adjust the header and the avatar, link things in there. Where you see these 2+ and the little box is where there's actually reflections as well, where students can upload a document and put reflections directly in there. I know when doing paper, printout binders, that was always the hardest part. Kids put it in and they wouldn't kind of come back to it, or they just throw the old version out and put a new one in. This allows reflection on there, and as a teacher, actually, you're able to comment on them as well. You can see they're time stamped as well, so we have an idea, and we'll talk a bit about the tags later. But there's quite a few exemplars there. If you want to go through and take a look later on, again, that'll be linked to the presentation. The other piece, so the presentation, but I didn't want to go all the way through this because it's kind of a long time. But what I've actually done is linked some outcomes and indicators to things you can do in my blueprint for co-op. So evaluating potential education and career pathways, that's your indicator. That's the tool you can use, and I've got some screenshots of them there. So there are 12, 11 different slides with things on there, and it's a pretty good opportunity for you to go through, take a look when you have some time and see how you may be able to use it, and you may find additional ways. It's not a comprehensive list of everything you can possibly do, but it is an opportunity to see some ideas that may work and uses that connect with directly with those outcomes and indicators. So options though too, I added some in here as well. So creating an actual education planner, students are able to create and play around with education plans. So they can create, when we have students coming in grade 10, they can create high school plans for the next 3 years and see your pathways eligible. It'll tell them what opportunities exist for them there, and they can actually see which post-secondary programs they may be able to qualify if they were successful in those courses and met the other requirements, and what careers would be available based on those post-secondary options. So they can start to navigate and create and develop a plan from there, which should be a 3-year process as they redefine kind of what experiences they have. We all know students who go on job shadows, who go on tours, who do their co-op placements, will end up changing their mind, several of them. Be in their head until they experience and see what the actual daily life is like. So using this as a starting process and documenting that career plan over the course of it is a really good opportunity that our O2 students have, where there's a 3-year program we can kind of encourage them through. In my blueprint, they can make an unlimited number of portfolios. So they're not bound by anything. They can upload the same items to multiple portfolios if they work. But this is one use of it that is really meaningful because they're able to start to plot out and plan where they may want to go. Who am I surveys, using a portfolio as a tool to get to know the kids at the start. There's some of those surveys that we would all do with the students there. The interests, the personality types, the Myers-Briggs type test. There's 5 of them in there, and there's compatibility surveys for careers as well. But answering the who am I early on in that year as part of your application process maybe with your grade 9s, but analyzing those personal skills and interests is one of the outcomes there. Having that who they are and introducing themselves to you, or using those as pieces for their other portfolios later is a really good piece. But I like the idea of having them introduce themselves early on, doing some of this, getting familiar with the program, and having something for you that is all about them. And as we'll show you, they can add a ton of stuff very easily in their portfolio. There is a goal setting tool in there where they can create action goals. So when we're teaching SMART goals, the tool is in there where it allows them to set what type of goal it is, the length of time, what it is, you can set the number of action steps and tell them the number of action steps you'd like them to add, but they can add action steps and actually check them off as they go. And in CBL, I mentioned CBL 11, the new course. There's a service learning piece there. Those 3 of the outcomes related to it. It makes sense to document the whole process in there. If you have a collective working together to ensure that you know who's taking what role and responsibility, see that process and be able to provide feedback along the way, it's really important to have them document it throughout the whole thing, and not just documenting it at at the end, trying to come up with a reflection at the end, but documenting where they've hit roadblocks, what they've tried to do, how they navigated around things. That's where they're able to really think about their learning and express their learning. So I think that's a really powerful tool in there to try to do this, because I know that's always been, we've heard that a lot in a variety of courses that have service learning, is how do I assess it? And I think keeping them documenting the whole process means they have to engage with it the whole time. And again, it's not necessarily a service learning project going to be an everyday for 2 weeks thing, but when they are doing work on it, to document what they've done, to reflect on how the process is going, those are all meaningful things that can be added there. So we're going to go on a little tour of it. Are there any questions at this point? Oh, good. All right.
Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. No, I popped on. I'm here till it's time for my session, but there is a question here and I couldn't answer it, and I'm not sure. I'm unsure who your moderator is, but how long does my blueprint remain accessible after graduation?
If they are logging in currently it's every 18 months. We're looking at that with the privacy things. It could be a year to 18 months. As long as they're logging in, they will have access to it until it goes dormant beyond that point in time. So we know that Google is, after 6 months or a year, gets kind of locked off, but it would be my blueprint. They're going to have access to it for the long haul. So right now we don't have, as long as they're logging in within 18 months, they have access to it. So if a student in second year of university, they're starting their second year of post-secondary and are thinking about changing their program, they'd be able to go on and access and do some research there. They'd be able to access and share their portfolios with someone or other documentation they may have on there. It's linked with their GNSPES emails, so we would encourage them close to graduation to change that email as well, because that email is going to go away after a while. So where they lose that access to that big drive, they can still store stuff in here or in their own other drive, but they'd have access to things that they would have done in here in perpetuity. All right. So I know someone had asked a question today about what it looks like from a teacher account. So what I have is a couple mock classes here. One that I set up and played with and added some stuff this morning so you can see. It's really easy to create a class. All students' accounts are created through their GNSPES. They just have to validate them. So if a student's not showing up for your school, there might be a glitch somewhere. It very, very infrequently happens when we're talking tens of thousands of kids. It's like twice I think I've dealt with it in the last 2 years. So, but to create a class, you give it a name. You can have multiple kind of classes. And you just select the students to add there. So they're available in your class. And what you'll see is a list of students like there. You'll be able to see who they are, percentage of the tasks assigned by my blueprint they've done. You can view their account, send a message to them, add family to them, whatever you would like to do. The other thing that you can do, so if I click on their name, I'll get this little block here, tell you when they've last logged in. So when students say, we all know sometimes students who are looking to avoid things will say I swear I was on last night and I had these issues and something wasn't working. you can tell when they've last logged in. Things aren't gonna disappear or be left somewhere else. You can tell when they've logged in. The other, you won't have to worry about the reset email or password because it is set up through their GNSPES and it's validated. They'll be able to single sign on from the GNSPES landing page as well after they validate their account. But so the other piece is, sorry, feed here. I can actually see what students have done. I can look through my whole class and see what students have done. I can add comments to what they've done, so to give them some feedback. If I want to have probing questions because the reflection's not deep enough, I can do that. And I can do it, I'm just tired of typing or I type really slow. You can record a little audio clip for them. It's not text-to-speech, just an audio clip. You can record a video, take a photo or upload a photo or add a file. If you want to add a document, you want to add a link that gives some more context to it there. I can filter it directly by student as well to see what they've done, but it shows me what they've loaded there. If I want to tag it because it needs a tag to help clarify it a little bit, I can do that as well. But whatever they put in, I can see kind of what's been happening there. So I can follow and give them some feedback along the way. So it makes it really quick to see what's there, to give a little bit of feedback, to give that formative assessment, and to really monitor what's happening. So it's just like a Twitter feed there. So another couple questions, Kathy says. Cell phone's not an issue at all. They can use a tablet, a cell phone, or whatever. It scales to the size, so there's not a specific app they have to download. It scales to whatever they're using. For kids that are comfortable using cell phones, again, the screen size isn't phenomenal, but there is the opportunity to use it in the full function there. It scales and works there. Again, for a lot of kids, they're used to working on a cell phone. They're used to doing everything on there, so the size of the text isn't as bad as someone like me who needs to wear glasses. So they can have a hard copy or save it to a place outside. So no, you can't PDF. There used to be an option to PDF it. There were some issues with just formatting with that, so they took that away. They can share live links, or they can download any documents that they have in there, but as a holistic portfolio, no. So what they can do is have a live share and email that to anyone, and they can set a password. We're going to set it up in the near future where there's a turn off at any point in time. They can delete that link. So there is a live share option with the portfolio that they're able to do at any point in time, but a PDF export at this point in time, no. One of the reasons why they've moved away from that is because the options for multimedia exist within it. How do you, your PDF doesn't do a great job at having any video or external links that you may have or anything else like that. Those pieces are really missing when you're trying to have it in a PDF. It's not as rich as it could be, and so that's why they kind of moved away because the quality of images goes down, other things like that. All right, any others? All right, so easy for you guys to see in there. There is a one-way messaging tool. So if all your students are on here, you can send it. They'll get a notification in their email that they have a message in there. If their families are set up as well, which families can have an account, you can pop a message out. So if it's a reminder about something that needs to be in all their portfolios, or a reminder about an event coming up, you can do that. Again, if you already have an email list and you already have other stuff, it's just another opportunity, especially if you have families signed up, you can send it to all of them, check families as well, and all of them will get the reminder. It's a one-way. So you're also not having to come in and check it. They would have to email you if they had questions. So it would come back to there. You wouldn't have to go to an additional place to email it. If you want to create an activity, again, if you have certain reflective activities you want them to do, you can by all means, if you're using your Google Classroom already, set the activity in there, and then they can do it in their My Blueprint, or you can create an activity, ask them to do something, and it'll tell you who's done it and passed it in. And you'll be able to kind of go and view and monitor who's passed it in that way. If this is the thing that you're doing and that you want to use, that's an opportunity for you there. One other thing I was going to show you was you can share your class at any point in time. So if you're co-teaching with someone else, if you have a student teacher come in, you can share your class and they'll be able to be in the same classroom as you as well. Launch page to go on or require guys cancel. So someone will have to just validate. Your students are already validated because they draw the information from PowerSchool. As a teacher account, we just have to ensure that you're a teacher because you have access to student information. For the students, they just validate it with their student ID number and date of birth at this point in time. So they log in with their GNSPS credentials. It'll ask them to validate. We're moving it to just student ID number, and then they'll be able to access their account because the information is drawn directly from their PowerSchool and Google. But yeah, with teachers, it's just an extra layer of protection to ensure that we don't have someone, a parent, a student, whoever signing up as a teacher and getting access to students' portfolios. All right, so easily able to share our classes as well if that is what we'd like to do. Into My Blueprint, when you log in, you'll come to kind of this dashboard page. As I said, portfolios are the furthest one over. So the nice thing about tags, as I said, I'll talk about tags a little bit later, is set tags up. It makes it a little bit easier to organize because you can filter just based on what I'm looking for there. So these are the results of the surveys that students have done, that this student has done. It tells them some information, and I'm able to go through and see what it actually is. They can add multiple tags to something. It gives you the idea of the date of when it was added. If I want to see things tagged in multiple ways, I can do that. And again, they're able to upload a variety of things. So if they want to upload PDFs or images of their certificates, I'm just going to refresh here. All those certificates will show up. So they can have a PDF, a link to it, or they can take an image of it and upload those. Has some reflections on them there. Add reflections. So when we're adding documents, again, they can add media, which would be a picture from a picture directly from their webcam, a video directly from their webcam, audio, an external link. So if there's a link to a site that has some more information, a video that they think gives greater context to what they're doing off YouTube, anything like that, they can do it, or file. They can load anything that's up in their Google Drive or on their device. So if they're on their cell phone and they've recorded a video of them doing something on their work placement, they are able to upload that directly to this, put it in, add some feedback, say what it shows, start to reflect on it there. If it's a picture of what they've done on their placement, if it is, an audio recording of something that they're talking about, they can upload anything there. With the reflections, the same thing that they can do. If you have a struggling writer, they can record an audio clip, a video, they can add a photo to give some more context, and you can give some feedback there that they'll see under these as well, and you'll be able to see, they can be an ongoing kind of probing to get them to go deeper with whatever they have in there. So, as I mentioned, these can be shared. So you can generate a link at any point in time. You can copy it and email someone and they'll have access to it. So what that means is if I want to share it with the place I'm looking to go up my co-op placement, they have a time to look at it and not just during that meeting I'm having with them or a sales pitch that we're trying to do. And I can share it out to multiple places if need be without any issue. This is great if we're talking about sharing it out for scholarship applications, if we're sharing it out for job applications, whatever the case may be. They can share out really easily with a bunch of people. And if I know I'm looking at multiple places and I want to update my cover letter that's in there, what I can do is duplicate it at any point in time. And instead of having to fully recreate the thing, I can go in and edit the documents I want to. So now if I'm sharing it out with Kathy Greeno Plumbing and Don Hill Plumbing, I can update my cover letter to adjust there, or if I'm looking at a couple different places that may not be the exact same industry, I can adjust what I have in there to reflect the place I'm looking to do without having to have a completely new paper one where I'm printing and photocopying and doing all sorts of stuff to get that ready there. So again, they can add an unlimited number of these portfolios. So you can see I've got a ton of them there with a ton of things in them, videos, audio, everything else that goes in there, and it's really really good. The other thing is there's some really good. It's not just a portfolio tool; it's a career exploration, career research tool as well. As I mentioned, there's that high school piece where students are able to create a plan and see what they're eligible for based on the courses they're looking to take. They can search and compare post-secondary, as I showed you with one of the links earlier. Right, they're able to go in and search. And actually follow or compare. The other thing is if students, because I'm sure you've all dealt with this, they find out about a program, they see something when they're researching an old tools that we had, and they can't remember the name of it the next day when they come in. Very social media-esque, they can like something and it shows up in their favorites over here. So they can always come back and find it later. So if I wanted to compare up to 3 programs side by side, we get students doing research about their career and education plans. Everything is side by side. They can go directly to the program websites, tells you if you're eligible, what the cost is, if co-op's an option, what tuition is for in-province. If I picked McGill as one of these, it would tell me the out-of-province tuition, what the estimated residence costs are, related occupations, related programs, and the requirements I'd have. So if I have multiple plans, I can set and change those. It tells me I need Math 12 or Pre-Cal. I didn't have that on my list, so I'd need to add that. I can go to the application website and start that process right from there as well. So as far as the tool to help students kind of plan, tells them what their other minimum requirements are. And again, that's the minimum requirement. I think I looked at what nursing was, and it was like 85 was the minimum requirement, or 80. The minimum requirement doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get in. So it's still important for students to have these conversations about that. But one of the purposes is that they can know what at least the baseline is. There's a resume and cover letter builder in here, which are really user-friendly. Students can add their information in there pretty quickly, develop one. It pre-populates some stuff. It's not going to give you all sorts of titles that aren't put in because you had to do it because that's the way the format is. You can change titles. It does give you another really nice piece when you instruct the students and you give them some stuff and then they try to come back to it, where it says need help. when you're adding anything, it has the information there, which gives some context to what it is and helps kind of prompt them for how to do it as well. So both the resume and the cover letter, that's a really good use, directly built into there. And again, they can add those to as many portfolios as they want or export them. There's also a live job search link directly to Indeed. So if they want to see, when we're trying to give students the context of, okay, you're starting in here, what does an entry-level job require? This has all the live current jobs posted on Indeed, so they can search for whatever they may want. And if there's a current post, it'll show up in Nova Scotia. It also is nice in occupations, which they can compare the three of them side by side again, especially if they're unsure of the differences of what an electrical engineer and engineering technician are. They can add these there, compare, and if there is live posts currently, so all the labor market information and data is there, so they're able to make a bit more informed decision than some of the other tools that were there. If there's current job postings, they'll show up though in here. If there's not, they won't show up. But if there's current job postings, they can see what the requirements are. It'll take them to Indeed. It'll tell them what they're looking for people in there, so they can start to see other qualifications they may need, what the standard is in the industry that people are looking for. So it is, it's really good for them to be able to figure out what may be out there and what's the standards that people would be holding them to. So,
Jamie, you got 3 questions in the chat if you want to address them.
Perfect, thank you. I'll come back. How? All right, we'll go back to yes. Sharing with the host create portfolio, just duplicate the work and drop it. Yes, yeah, 100. So 100% you can do, as just say, you can tailor that one there. So like that co-op one that I had, if I wanted to change what it was, so this is the copy. I could take that learning plan out, create some new goals. I could change that cover letter out and put a new one in. It doesn't affect the initial version of it there. So my co-op 12 is the initial version. This new one here, really easy. And again, it's those 3 dots and duplicate. So I can always duplicate at any point in time. And in there, whatever I do to this one only happens to this one, not to both of them. It can be presented in a slideshow, and so it can be used as a presentation tool as well if students want. But yeah, if you want to share, you generate a link, and I can share that link out with whoever. I can directly email from here, or I can just copy it into an email and send it to them. If they want a password to ensure it's there, or I want to turn off the comments and reflections, I don't want to see in the documents, I can turn that on or off as well. Or I can only share it with people who have a password as a way. I just don't want anyone to be able to access it. Only people I've shared with who have given the password directly to. So yeah, so they can be shared with anyone. I can make copies and tailor it without having to edit that initial one if I don't want to. So at any point in time, I can adjust as I want. So you may be student may be looking to apply for a summer job, and taking pieces of this and using it, but not the whole thing. I may not want to share, but the who am I pieces with everyone, but I do with that employer, or I want to share it with my teacher, but not the employer that I'm sharing out. So I can edit as I need, right? Based on who the person is, who the audience is, and what I want them to see. So it can vary there. And obviously we wouldn't want our student, if it's their holistic capstone project, to be sharing out the one that has the reflections on the workplace necessarily, unless we want the employer to see some of that stuff. If we want them to be engaging in that process, we can do that. This can be another place for them to also monitor their learning plan in co-op as well. Create those goals. Said they can check off their steps as they go. It'll show as completed when I finish everything, which is great. So I completed the goal. It's checked off green. Kids get to see, like, actively participate in there. I can add more action steps at any point in time if I want to. And if teacher says, can you give me some explanation how I do it? They can add reflections and add documents there. They can do another reflection as well. So if they want to add a reflection, external one, they can add a journal, however they want to do it, tag it there. So however they want to do it would be, they can write it, they can add an image, they can add a video, audio, a link, or if they typed it in Google Docs, they could, or a Word doc or whatever, they could link that as well. If they did it in that piece, or from my blueprint, if they have items there that they want to add, so their goals, their resumes, their work experience, things like that, they can add directly from there. If they want to change their avatar, it's easy. Banner as well. So they can personalize it to a degree. And other questions? Yes, so you can they can turn off teacher comments so they're not shared with everyone. Yeah, so if they don't want the employer to see it. So they would still be able to see it, but if they're sharing it, when you share, I can change settings, their reflections and their comments. So if they've written personal stuff and they don't want that person to necessarily see on one of those documents, they can set up a password or not, but they can turn the comments and reflections off at that point in time by turning them off there. So again, depends on the audience. There's certain stuff they may not want to share with an audience, and again, instead of having to delete that whole document and then re-add it, they can just turn the comments and reflections off if they would like. The biggest piece is continually ensuring that we're giving students feedback on this, that's an ongoing process, and that we're ensuring that they're not just adding things to add them, but they're thinking about why it's added. It can become a big mess of stuff really quickly if we just say add, and get pressure on them there. We want them to purposefully add things and think about and explain why they're adding rather than just adding to add. And encouraging that reflection and digging deeper. The nice thing about the new curriculum in O2 and co-op is there's lots of guiding questions that exist within that. There's new indicators you can adjust and do that and get them to dig. There's also some resources in both the Moodles about reflective practice to really encourage them to dig deeper and think about it. And it's not a natural thing for them to do that often, especially at that age, that taking the time to think back about that experience and how it's impacted isn't always clear. So by all means, when you're playing around with this, if you do have questions, reach out, shoot me an email. I don't mind getting on, having a conversation with you, navigating you through some stuff, having a chat, whatever kind of works for you. I'm more than happy to help where I can, because I think it's a great resource for the kids that we have doing our programs, because it just aligns with so many of the outcomes and indicators that we have in those courses, and meeting the end goal of giving students the opportunity to make informed decisions. So thank you all.